Well, good morning, Homestead family. Happy new day. You know, over the years, many people have always asked me, how'd you get your thumb so green? You're always so successful in your garden. And I always tell them that my thumb didn't become green from being successful. My thumb became green little by little from overcoming my failures in the garden. And that's what we want to talk about on today's video. We're going to actually take a little quiz, and you can check your own score on your own self at your level of gardening, and you can determine how green is your own thumb. So go grab yourself a pad and a pen so you can take some notes and maybe grab a cup of coffee, and we'll go through our little quiz today. It's just a short quiz, and you can check it at the end and see what your score is, and you can determine how green your thumb is. We'll be right back after the break. Well, welcome back, friends. I hope you got you some coffee and a pad and a piece of paper and a pen, and let's head on into the house because I'm kind of cold out here today. So I got this little quiz I put together. I think we can take. It's only 10 questions long, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through 10 typical obstacles or challenges that folks have they encounter when you're gardening, and what you do to overcome those challenges. So if you have encountered one of these challenges that we're going to go through, then and you have overcome it and you didn't give up, you didn't quit gardening, you kept working and you worked through it and you improved yourself by overcoming that challenge, give yourself 10 points. We'll go to the next challenge. We'll talk about that. If you have not encountered that type of challenge and you've never experienced that, then you got 0 points on that. No points. Because if you haven't experienced it, you will in time, because these are very basic, typical challenges that everyone will encounter at some time or another when you're gardening. And until you overcome that challenge, you can't get your thumb any greener, because it's only going to turn green by overcoming the problems instead of just, saying, look how great my squash grew this year. Hey, you got to understand why it did. So let's head on in the house and let's warm up, and let's go through this little quiz together, and at the end we'll see what your score is. Let's head on in. Okay, we're about ready to get started here. I want to start off with one that's very common, that just about everybody's going to encounter this one at some time or another. It's weeds. This is actually the #1 discouragement for any new gardener. You go out and you really work really hard clearing out a garden bed and getting all the weeds and grass out of it, and you get your plants and seeds put in, and about 3 to 4 weeks later, after everything's starting to grow well and you're thinking you're doing just a great job, all of a sudden you have this huge emergence of weeds, and the weed population can just absolutely destroy your garden, and you can lose control of your weed population so fast that you don't even realize it. And what happens is that really discourages a lot of people, and they just give up, and they just say this is too much trouble, and and it beats them. But this is a challenge that everybody goes through. It's nothing new, but if you can work on these weeds and keep up with it as part of your garden routine, you'll learn to come through that pretty quick and pretty easy without any trouble at all. So along the way on this little quiz, I'm gonna give you some links or some thumbnails to some videos. If I have a video on this subject, you may want to go and take a look at that video and see if it it gives you any ideas or maybe helps you understand a little bit more about how to deal with that. So as we go along, I'll put these videos up if I have any. So now, if you have encountered this challenge and you have overcome it, then go ahead and give yourself 10 points for the weeds. And here's a video on my weed control that might help you. The next one is a pretty bad one. Insects that can really destroy one's motivation to do any kind of garden at all. And the first thing you have to learn how to do with insect activity in your garden is you need to identify the insect and or the damage, and that takes some practice and some research. And you can find this on many websites online by Googling it up and checking it out. And once you determine the bug that is bothering your stuff, then you want to research an organic solution to control that bug. I don't use any kind of pesticides in my garden at all. Anything I use is strictly organic, and I don't have really a real problem with the bugs doing it the way I do it. Another thing you can do to help yourself with this insect problem is plan your harvest ahead of the population of the insects. So if I know a certain bug is going to lay a certain type of egg at a certain time of the year, I try to coordinate and schedule my planting times to suit that I can go in, get my plants in the ground, get a harvest out, get my fruit off before that bug season actually gets going. And actually I kind of beat him to the draw, and I can get my stuff out and pull that plant out before they get in there and get established. So you want to plan your harvest ahead of the population. Some other things you can do to help you with this, mechanical solutions would be insect netting. That's a good alternative. If you have a heavy insect population in your area, you can put that insect netting over your plants. Another thing to keep in mind is weeds breed bugs. They love a weedy garden. If there's lots of weeds down in the bottom of your garden and you're trying to grow plants in there, those weeds will be infested with bugs because it's a safe haven for them, and they'll be right into your plant material within just a few days. So try to keep your weeds under control. Another thing you can do to try to help you with the insect population is go up on container grow tables if you're trying to grow it in containers. Lifting it up off the ground and getting it away from where the insects thrive really helps. It's helped me, and I've always done it that way. So grow tables are really the way to go. And if you experience a persistent problem with a certain kind of bug for 2 or 3 years in a row, what I've done is I skip planting that particular crop for a couple of years. 2 or 3 years, I just won't plant that because clearly it's drawing in that type of bug. So I just skip over that one for a couple of years, and a lot of times that has solved my problem. I used to have a real problem with squash bugs. I skipped planting squash for 3 years. When I came back, I planted early, got my squash in ahead of that bug season, lay-in season, and I haven't had any problems since. Now, if you're really looking for some solutions to, sprays and chemicals and things, there's a guy named Gary Pilarchek. He's got a YouTube channel called The Rusted Garden. Gary's been around a long time, and he's very good at what he does when it comes to insect control. He's got all kinds of solutions and great videos that'll help you. So if you want to go to Gary's channel, check it out, and he can help you take care of a persistent insect problem that you may be having. The only video that I know of is, that I have the biggest problem with here is tomato hornworms. And I have a video for that. I'll put that up for you to go check that out. But that's a bug that I know I'm going to get every year. So I get proactive as soon as I get my tomatoes in and I start getting to a certain stage when I know they're going to show up, I go ahead and start spraying with the BT. BT is an organic spray that I can use, and it'll help you with them bugs. The next one I want to talk about is poor soil. I think everybody may have experienced a little bit of problem with poor soil in their day. Well, first thing you want to do is, if you're having problems growing stuff and you think it might be your soil, you want to check your pH level. And there's little kits you can get, like down at Lowe's, you know, for very cheap. And you can take a composite of your soil out there and check your pH level, make sure it's about somewhere between 5.5 and 6.5, and that's pretty generic for all vegetables. And you can check and see where you're at, and adjust accordingly. Another thing you can do, if you really think you got some real problems, is take a soil composite and send it to your local county agriculture agent, and they'll do an analysis on it, and they'll give you a printout on what your soil is deficient in and what you need to do to add it back in. And you can amend your soil with whatever they're telling you you're deficient in, and get that straightened out. Now, if you've got sandy soil, rocky soil, a lot of clay, too wet, you may find that you just need to get away from trying to plant it in an earth bed and create some raised beds and container gardening, and try to get away from all that real bad soil. If you've got a severe soil problem, just get away from it and go into the raised beds and the container garden, and you'll be just fine. And you'll save your mental capacity will stay intact. So, we have a real problem down here with sand. So, I've got a video I'll give you here. It's called What We Do to Amend Our Sandy Soil here in Florida, and possibly that'll help you. So go check out that video if you're dealing with sandy soil. Next one is crop failure. Crop failure is one that can be extremely disappointing. You need to try to analyze by researching what the cause was. It could have been you had too much water, it's too dry, too much sun, not enough sun, incorrect planting time, soil deficiency, nutrients, and you're planting something in the wrong zone. So you need to check out this and see if you can figure out why your crop is failing. And some of it may not be your fault. I mean, you can't control the weather, but if you're putting too much water, that's something you can do something about. Or if it's too dry, that's something you can do with. And same with sun. I mean, you can use shade cloth and move it around into shady areas. Or if it's not getting enough sun, move it out to where it's not sitting in the shade. It all depends on the plant. How much sun does it need, and what kind of soil does it need? And most of all, be sure you're in the correct zone. If I'm down here in zone 9 and I'm trying to grow something that really only grows in zone 4, it's going to be too hot for that plant to survive, so I don't even attempt it. I know better. So check out your zones and make sure that you're not planting something that's just in the wrong zone. So what you want to do is research what your plant's going to need before you grow it. Make sure that you understand that the conditions that you're trying to grow in will suit that plant's needs. So check that out. Next one is watering. Oh boy, I think we've all had some problems with watering. If you get too much water, you're going to end up with root rot. If you get too little, you're going to end up with drought stress. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do anything. Yeah, of course you can't do anything about too much water from rain or a drought, but this is what you're doing. If you're watering it too much, or if you're not watering it enough, then that's going to create a problem. So you want to water early in the mornings only. That way that water has all day for that plant to take it up and protect it from the heat of the day, and by the time it gets down to the nighttime, that plant's roots are not sitting saturated in water after you watered it, and which would create a root rot problem. So I always say plant early in the morning and let it ride till the next day. And then you want to check and see how that plant looks. Is it wilting? Does it look pretty happy the next morning? If it is, you got the right amount of water. If you go out there first thing in the morning and all your leaves are wilted down and it looks really thirsty, the plant's screaming that it wants more water. So increase that duration of your water a little bit more than what you're giving it, and you should be able to do that. Plant a favor. So always adjust your frequency and duration to suit what the leaves are telling you. Watch for that wilt. Another thing to do is I like to get in down on my hands and knees, and I put my hand in that soil and I feel it and I squeeze it together. If that soil holds together moderately good into my hand after I squeeze a handful of it, it's good and moist. If it just falls out of my hands, like sugar, it's too dry. You need to water it a little bit more. And especially when talking about watering in the mornings, if you've got containers, you want to water them every morning, no matter if it rains or not. If it did rain, it's not going to be enough to do that container. So go out there and water it again, even if it rains. And I got a few videos that I can put up about watering, since we have so many problems with them. So take a look at these videos. The next one a lot of us fail in is seed failure. Seed failure can be very disappointing. My first thing I would say about seed failure is, if you're just starting out and this is your first garden, don't start out planting seeds. Start out buying the little transplant seeds from your local nursery and start out with a little starter plant that's all ready to go. Don't go into the seed starting level of your gardening experience until your second year. Go ahead and get your first year, get your feet on the ground, planting, watering, and all that, taking care of it. Then the next year, if you want to branch out and go into starting it from seed, that's a whole new ball game. So don't start out with something that's like a level 2 when you're only on level 1. So I would say start out planting transplants. Now, if you are onto your second year and you're having trouble with your seeds, a lot of things happen. Poor germination, that could be too much water. Leggy, they're not getting enough sunlight. They're too small. You need to step them up into a bigger plant pot. The soil's too coarse. If you got coarse soil in there, that water's just going to fall right through and you're going to get a poor germination, if any at all. So always use a seed starting mix when you're trying to start your seeds. And the soil, if it's too cold, that seed is not going to germinate very good at all. It's got to be kind of warm. And if you did not harden off your seedling before you transplanted it, especially if you grew it inside, an indoor seed start, if you take it straight outside and try to plant it, it's probably not going to make it. You need to harden it off a few days. And another rule of thumb for me is, if I have seeds that are 3 years old, that's my max. I don't save them any longer. They probably are fine, and you probably can get some germination out of them. But for me, if it's 3 years old, I discard those seeds. What I actually do with them is I go out and I plant them out in the chicken yard and hope they germinate. And if they do, then the chickens get them some little seeds. Some little plants to chew on. But I like to start with a fresh new seed. That reduces my odds of seed failure. And I've got some videos for this subject. We'll take a look at these, and if you see any that you think you might want to take a look at, go check them out. The next one is my plants didn't produce any fruit. That can be discouraging. What happened here is you most likely have had a phosphorus deficiency, and when you're producing fruit on your vegetables, they need to have blooms to put out that fruit. So if you want to grow something that's going to have fruit, you got to have flowers. So to do that, you want to increase your phosphorus by adding bone meal in the hole the next time you plant. A good handful into each hole where you plant. That will boost that phosphorus, and it'll produce more blooms and give you a better root system, which is going to take up the nutrients to that fruit, and it's going to cause it to grow good. Another one is you might have put bone meal in there, but you put a lot of nitrogen in there with it. So you don't want to use a high nitrogen fertilizer on plants that need blooms to produce fruit. This just makes it grow a lot of foliage and very little to no blooms. And if that's the case, you've definitely got way too much nitrogen. And for an example, a lot of people like to use Miracle Grow or something like that. That Miracle Grow is very high in nitrogen. If you're squirting that stuff on your tomato plants, you're going to get some beautiful green foliage and not very good on the fruit production. So be real careful about how much nitrogen you're actually introducing into your soil. Next one I hear is, wow, this is really costing a lot. I didn't expect it to cost too much. Well, you probably have started out too big. What I say is start out small, just a few plants, a very small little garden. It might only be 2 feet wide by 6 feet long. You only got 6 plants in it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Start out small and add on a little bit each year as your gardening experience increases, and you'll find that you can do this very gradual, and it's not going to run into a huge cost. Your garden should grow with your experience level. And then once you get going with your garden, you can also remember that starting from seed is a lot cheaper than going out and buying a whole bunch of transplants. So once you get to that level where you can start seeds pretty good, you're going to do great because you're going to save a lot more money. And the next one is animals. Oh boy, there's nothing more aggravating than to go out there and see that some animals tore up your garden. And I'd say that the number one enemy of an urban garden are rabbits and squirrels. And number one enemy of a rural garden is deer. And I've experienced all of that. Now, there's other enemies in the garden as well that I'm just going to list a few, and I'm sure y'all have got them too. Birds, moles and voles, rats, dogs, cats, raccoons. All these critters are going to do damage to your garden at some time or another if you got them. And I would say the best solution for any garden to deal with animals is fencing. Any kind of fencing that you can get up there is going to get the job done. It's a mechanical deterrent. There's artificial deterrents as well, you know, all these little scare tactics and things like that are supposed to keep the animals out. And some of it works to a certain degree, but there's nothing going to beat a fence. And there's also, you can use some kind of repellents. There's a lot of repellents on the market, but they get kind of expensive. And you can actually make your own pepper spray, which I've done before, in a small application. If I just got a few that a certain animal is bothering, I'll make up my own pepper spray and spray that plant to discourage him from eating that stuff. So we've got a few videos on this one as well. We'll put them up for you. See if you can take a look through those. It might help you. last one I got here is inclement weather. What a heartbreak. You can experience seasonal stuff in the weather that is going to destroy your garden, and some of them are, it's too hot, too cold, too much rain, drought, severe thunderstorm, hurricanes, etc. I would say that for the most part you cannot control the weather, but you can try to deal with some of the effects that you may see coming your way. If it's too hot and you know your plants are really suffering from a lot of sun, you might want to go with some shade cloth. And you also want to increase the watering. If you're going through a heat snap, you know, where it's real hot, you may want to increase your watering to maybe twice a day to keep them roots cooled down. If it's too cold, you can put covers over your plants, or you can move them inside. You just have to get through the severe freezes that come your way. And if it's just cool, they're probably just fine. If you're getting too much rain and you got a heavy rain in your garden, go out and cultivate in between the rows, and that will loosen up that soil in between your rows and draw that moisture away from your row, and it'll help it from getting root rot. If you got a drought problem, increase the frequency and duration of your irrigation. That way you can get through the drought spell. And if you got severe thunderstorms and hurricanes, my friends, those are usually terminal for a garden, and it's really not a whole lot I can do about, 100-mile-an-hour winds and 15 inches of rain. So at that point, if I see a hurricane coming, I pretty much know it's a write-off for that year. And we got a couple of videos out there, and just to remind you that I go through the agony of loss in a garden because of inclement weather myself. I got a little one here. This is kind of a bonus point for you. This one is it's too hot or it's too cold for me to work outside. That can be true. And what I've done is adjusted my garden chore schedules to where I'm not out there in the heat. And in the summertime, I try to get out there just before sunrise, and I can get my chores done as much as I can before it gets too hot and I can't stand it. Or I can go out after sunset and get it real late in the afternoon while it's cooled off and get my chores done that way. If it's real cold during the wintertime and you got a winter garden, you may want to adjust your chores for the garden to more of the mid-morning or midday, as soon as the sun comes up and it warms up just a little bit. These are the questions. So take a look at your score and see how many of these you scored 10 points on, and let's see how well we did. Well, we got the quiz over with. Back when I was in school, I used to hate taking a quiz or a test or an exam, but I have to admit that little quiz there was actually kind of fun to take, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I hope you liked it. Anyway, I'm kind of curious. Did the little quiz today help you to realize that your thumb is a lot more greener than you thought? I hope so. Hope it encouraged you. As a matter of fact, why don't you, if you don't mind, putting in the comments what your test score was, and I just want to see how many people really found out that they had a green thumb and never knew it. I hope you do. So anyway, we had fun today on the little test, and I hope that the video just brought a little joy to your heart and a little peace to your day. So until me and Nancy see you on the next video, always remember, by His hands we are fed. Give us, Lord, our daily bread. Amen.